Just Imagine, a podcast series by Imagine Theatre.
Hello again and welcome to episode 114 of this podcast series, and this time I'm excited to say we're going to talk to the actress, singer and dancer who's an all-time pantomime and entertainment legend.
For more information, go to their website at www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.
Now in the last episode we were at the Royal Spa Centre in Leamington Spa to meet cast members from Imagine's pantos across the UK at one of the many photo shoots to preview the next season. So far in the series, we've had a variety of guests from celebrities and backstage team members to practitioners and academics. We've discussed specific panto titles, talked about how pantomime is produced, its history and its future. And you can check them all out where you normally get your podcasts from. And don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out in the future. So this time, I'm delighted to say we're going to meet a performer who's literally done everything as a figure skater, a dancer, a singer, a recording artist, an actress on stage, television and in movies in films like Carry On Doctor. She's worked with many, many legends, from magician David Nixon to the fabulous Morecambe and Wise, and she absolutely loves pantomime. Anita Harris, how are you?
Hooray! I haven't had an introduction like that for a while. Hello, my darling. I'm absolutely fine. And I'm thrilled to be on your podcast because I know that you love pantomime too. And we're so lucky to be involved with the magic that pantomime is. So yes, hello you, hello everyone.
Let's just go back a little way to the very beginning. And I mentioned figure skater, but even before then, I think you won a talent show at the age of 3, didn't you?
I won a bag of sweet. Yes, it was at one of those early morning movie shows or, Saturday morning kids things. I sang, "Now is the hour when we must say goodbye." 3 years old. I don't know what it must have sounded like, but then it's instilled in my memory. And, I had wonderful, wonderful parents and 2 big brothers, a lovely family upbringing. So I think I value that as much now as ever before.
If you hadn't ever gone along to the Queen's ice rink in London, you may never have been a performer at all.
That's absolutely right. You have done your bio, my darling, haven't you? I was skating with Courtney Jones, who then went on to become world ice dance champion 5 times and designed the Torval and Dean bolero costume. And we are still in touch. He introduced me to the Queen's ice rink, and there I was literally preparing for a competition at the time, and a talent scout from then the Bluebell girls came in to see girls, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And anyway, to cut a very long story short, my parents were there. I auditioned and they had to sign for a chaperone. And I went off firstly to Belgique for the exhibition over there, and then to Las Vegas. And that little audition was a week before my 16th birthday.
Wow.
You can imagine what my darling parents went through. Do we let her go? Is it crazy? Shall we let her fly? And they did. They let me fly, and knowing that I was going to be looked after. And, one of those girls in that dance company, in fact, it turned out to be the Monsieur Charlie Ballet, was Amy MacDonald.
Wow.
And I was with her only last week, and she's such a lovely girl, and we retained that friendship over all those years. So it's rather good, isn't it?
It is. I think, the interesting thing is you were spotted as a figure skater with potential as a dancer, and that's how your career began. But just staying with your childhood for a second, do you remember ever going to see a pantomime as a child?
Oh, at the Pavilion in Bournemouth, yes. My parents were from Bristol and Bath, but they moved to Bournemouth when I was 7. It was absolutely vibrant with theatre goers in those days, from so many stars. Frankie Vaughan, I remember so clearly Frankie Vaughan because he gave me my first bit of advice when I was 14 and looked up into those beautiful eyes of his. And the pantomimes at the Pavilion were always excellent and still are. All of the little theatres around were putting on pantomime. So when you see something, well, I'm hoping that it's still the case, when you see production and you go into a theatre as a child, you'll go into the foyer, and it's milling with people. It's just bustling with energy and excitement. It's probably been snowing outside and you're suddenly hustled in there. And then you go into the auditorium and you look around at the theatre and the lights and the architecture and everything. And then you sit down and then the orchestra strikes up and then the curtain goes up and you're in a world of magic. And I don't think that ever changes. I hope not. Throughout all of our lives, with granny, grandma, aunt, auntie, mum, dad, little kids, let that sustain forever.
Did you ever go up on stage as a child and maybe for the song sheet, or were you ever in a junior ensemble? Were you a
No,
babe?
no, I was never a babe. I was a convent girl. I don't know why I said that. No, I was never a babe and I never went on stage, which is probably why I absolutely loved it. When I was playing Principal Boy, I got the job of doing the song sheet. And oh, those children are just magic when they come up because you really don't know, out of the mouths of babes. They bring the house down much more than the 2.5 hours we've worked before. No, I didn't, to answer your question.
I think you came back to this country around 1959, 1960, and there'll be a lot of people who remember the long-running radio program Sing Something Simple. You were a member of the Cliff Adams Singers for 2 or 3 years, as well as another vocal group, the Grenadiers, I think, as well, weren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Cliff invented the Grenadiers for television, for Granada television, hence Grenadiers. Sing something simple as
Ah.
years go by. All together now, yes. It was lovely. Again, how lucky I was joining Cliff. I was with him, with the group for 2 years, learning. I had learned piano as a child, and so music was. And my father was very musical. He played the piano beautifully, but the instilling of learning harmonies and being part of a group, I think that also has remained with me. I love to be surrounded by other artists and be with them, and you look in somebody's eyes and you get a reaction back. And again, the sound of a choir is quite beautiful. So that absolutely is still with me. Also, of course, there was a young gentleman in that group called Engelbert Humperdinck. He became Engelbert
Yeah,
Humperdinck.
he was Jerry Dorsey at the time, I think, wasn't he?
Jerry Dorsey, yes, God bless him. So again, to have a career starting with such valuing qualities. And I kept a friendship with Cliff for many years after that. I must say that there were moments for young listeners of your podcast who won't remember the name of Alma Cogan, but sometimes in a recording studio, I would hear, would the young lady that thinks she's Alma Cogan just tone it down a bit? Of course. But that's how you learn. You get told off, and but you get encouragement as well, and it is invaluable, actually, those
So this
things.
is this is a bit of a sort of theme throughout your career, in that you were a figure skater, spotted, then became a dancer, came back, became a singer, spotted by the likes of, well, John Barry's a name that lots of people will remember. His manager, I think Tony Lewis, spotted you and offered you a recording contract, I think within a couple of years of coming back.
Absolutely right. And John Barry, of course, having gone on to create the Bond themes and such beautiful classical orchestrations, was in fact then the John Barry Seven. So he was very much into the pop world. He was in a group that had Lionel Bart and all of those people. So Lionel wrote me a song called "I Haven't Got You." I was taken into the EMI studios to record with a producer called Norman Newell, who produced so many hit records of the time. And John Barry did the orchestration. So it really was a whirlwind,
Yeah.
actually, those 4 years an absolute whirlwind.
And then the 1960s really did take off. I mean, it was an exciting time in so many ways, wasn't it? You know, the development of black and white into colour television. It was the development of the music business, led, of course, by the Mersey bands. And it was probably the heyday in the 1960s of the London Palladium pantos. I want to find out, first of all, you mentioned playing Principal Boy. When was your first panto?
My first panto was at the Gaumont, Southampton. And that must have been probably 1964, 65. That was with, give me a second, Jimmy Jewell and Ben Warris, Jewell and Warris, that's it. And that was, by the way, the Gaumont is now the big Mayflower at Southampton. And so I remember the whole winter was full of snow. I mean, you didn't have more snow in Great Britain than on that first pantomime of mine. And Jimmy Jewell was, we all said cheerio, the little tiny story, on Christmas Eve, see you on Boxing Day. I was obviously going back to my beautiful parents in Bournemouth, trying to get through into the snow. And Jimmy was on his way to London. And we did not learn until Boxing afternoon that on his way to London, his car broke down. He opened the bonnet and fiddled around. And bless his heart, he lost the top of his finger, and he spent the whole of Christmas in Southampton Hospital. But you know, he was back for the matinee on Boxing Day. That's what we learned in those days. The show goes on.
Who were your favourite dames that you worked with? You did a number of pantomimes, but I know there were so many of them. I mean, I think Norman Evans, Nat Jackley, people like that were still daming in the 1960s, and there'll be some up-and-coming dames as well.
Well, so many. Arthur Askey, George Lacey, Nat Jackley, Reg Dixon even, dear John Inman, Norman Evans, Cyril Fletcher. Then I go to the ones that I've worked with so much, which for me, Billy Dainty. We did 4 pantomimes together with lovely Freddie Davis and Bernie Breslaw. And Billy was what we really called the real butch dame. You know, and what he did with those 30 pairs of knickers. Da, 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 you know, great tune, the way he and then, of course, you've got lovely Jack Tripp, who was more feminine and just as endearing and just as delightful. I think the style of the dame, it changes, but it's still very paramount to the story that the children come for. Do you agree? Well, obviously you, darling, you're a beautiful dame, but it's hopefully it retains forever, because we then go into the elements, of course, of boy girl. Why can't a boy be more like a girl? Blah blah blah. But I think dame is probably the most difficult role in pantomime, and sometimes the most important, the sort of the rock, the center pin. So my admiration for all of you is quite incredible.
I have to say, by the way, that while you're listening to this, you'll be fascinated as I am hearing these stories from Anita, but she is working on a book. More about that a little bit later, so look out for that. But the 60s, so you're doing panto, you were doing countless albums and having hit singles, but you also were on television all the time, and then movies opened up as well, didn't they, for you? I think the earliest was about 1965, 66.
Indeed, my darling. And the reason and how I got the carry-ons was thanks to Frankie Howard. I was at the Prince of Wales with him in a review, and Gerald Thomas and the producer came to see Frankie about his next film, you know, carry-on film. And at the end of the show, they were in my dressing room. Said, "Would you like to do a carry-on?" So, what would you have said, my darling?
I think I'd have said, yes, I will do Follow That Camel and then maybe Carry On Doctor.
Yes, lovely experiences, beautiful experiences. And what a repertory company of stalwarts. each individual character in the Carry On brigade, all individually talented, all individually superstars in their own right. But when they got together with the Talbot Rothwell scripts or whoever happened to be writing those scripts of the time, by golly, something magical happened on that screen, didn't it?
Yeah, it certainly did. I think in many ways it's very similar to panto as well, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is. Of course it is. Isn't life?
You're right there.
I was only talking to Jim Dale a few weeks ago. We were doing a Carry On convention, and he filmed a lovely piece. And then over just like the magic of the airwaves, we chatted, and he's in wonderful nick and so sweet and so gentle of spirit. And he looks back on his world with great affection. It's I mean, he worked jolly hard, and he did all of his own stunts. So let's say he's our pantomime Mission Impossible.
He certainly is. He originated the role of Barnum on Broadway, of course, doing his own stunts, which Michael Crawford then opened in this country. And Jim Dale's a real legend, and a fair few pantos under his belt as well.
And How, My Darling, yes.
And just going back to the 1960s and our television screens, you were never really off them. You were on just about everything. I remember you particularly from David Nixon's shows. I think you were on Morecambe and Wise at least a couple of times, and Raw Varieties and all sorts of things. I mean, it was a really great period for you, wasn't it? It must have been exciting.
Very exciting. Every day waking up to another phone call. And firstly, the fundamental thing is and was the music. So I was recording most of the time, doing albums, new songs, old songs, jazz, the musicals, so much. And of course, that creates its own outlet in a way. But I can't talk about those days without talking about my darling husband, Mike, who was my mentor and my love. And he just found a way to just place what I had in the right direction. But he also valued the musicians very much. And so we were either on the road or, as you say, going into a TV studio. And there again, you had, are you the same as me when you walk into a studio that, you kind of intake of breath, even now, and you think, oh gosh, this has created so much joy, so much pleasure, but I just jolly well got to get it right, So the nerves, on the way to a studio, I get nervous, but that's only because I know what it's like. I know the output, and I've been there and seen so many stars do their thing. Bruce Forsyth, all of them, and as you said, dear Morecambe, Eric and Ernie, how they worked hard. But timing in their lives was a tremendous thing, because they had spent their years and years of trolling around the whole countryside and Europe, doing their stage show, perfecting their performances. So when they had the gift of being asked to go on television, they gifted television with their craft. And it was wonderful that it just evolved. They evolved with it evolved with them. And lovely, lovely memories. And to work with them, their ethos, their work ethos, by golly, yes, fun, but most importantly, rehearse, get it right, so that then once the foundation was set, then they would be able to leave that and ad lib if it felt right.
Now, you mentioned playing Principal Boy. There's a link to an early Principal Boy, in that I have a recollection of you singing Vesta Tilley's song Burlington Bertie on the good old days. In fact, I think you performed that a few times, didn't you?
Oh, a million times, yes.
And that was interesting because, of course, Vesta Tilley was one of the very first Principal Boys. But you've played so many different panto characters over the years, and I find it Really hard to believe for somebody who's so loved, but you've actually played the baddie, haven't you?
Of course. They're great, you know. I used to say playing Principal Boy was wonderful because you could be very feisty with the dame and have that naughty boy, thing. But when you play the villain, oh, by golly, you can get down to naughty things. Yes, well, that happens when you're over 21, you know.
Do you have a favorite pantomime title, Anita? You know, the show that you love as a story, perhaps more than any other?
I think Aladdin transports you on that magic carpet far away. It is a beautiful, beautiful pantomime. But I'm actually looking at quite a few in front of me now because, I'm going to put my spectacles on. I've got Jimmy Clitheroe was the next pantomime I did after the Southampton one with Jewel and Morris. And that was Cinderella. And then we did Jack and the Beanstalk. And then I did Dick Whittington with Freddie Davis and Bernie and Billy, and did three of those. Aladdin, Peter Pan, Dick Whittington with Dora Bryan and Derek Roy and Harry H. Corbett. And it just goes on. So favorite, I think they change as we get older.
Yeah.
I loved playing boy. I would still like it that girls can still play boy, but it actually doesn't matter. As long as people come into the theatre and have a wonderful time with their family, whatever age, I think that's what has to be how we go into the new year together, how we feel. You know, it's the happy ever after feeling. And that's our job, actually, isn't it, darling?
I think you're right, and they are subtly different. A lot of people might think all pantos are the same because you've got similar stock characters, but Cinderella is much more of a gentle fairy tale. Dick Whittington, Jack and the Beanstalk, Aladdin, you mentioned, all much more of an adventure, aren't they? Where you go on a journey, whether it's into Cloudland to fight the giant or whether it's off on
Yeah.
a magic carpet. And
Or
kids love an adventure, don't they?
Robinson Crusoe as well, which was fabulous. Did that with Tommy Trinder and Dear Jack Tripp. So yes, you're absolutely right. Keep the storyline threading through. That keeps the young ones. I went to a few myself this Christmas and I looked around and you look at the children's faces and their faces light up. And then you look at the mums and dads or the aunts or the grandma, and they're so happy that their kids are enjoying themselves. Look, I'm going on a bit, but I really mean it. I think theatre world and pantomime go hand in hand for getting away from the realities of life, basically. Just get in there and enjoy yourselves.
You're absolutely right. And I think many generations of kids have watched you in Panto, but a generation of kids in the 1970s might remember another thing of yours, which I remember, called Jumble Land, which
Oh,
was I think it was Thames, wasn't it? But it was a fabulous series.
oh, I loved it. Tumble in my jumble and stumble in my, oh, it was such a lovely, lovely. That was with, Billy was on that. We had guests on it. That was actually taken, the set was made into a jumble land. And of course, that Mike and I had our lovely Albert, the Afghan at the time. So Albert was starring in it as well. It was a junkyard, really, where children and myself could play and have magical things happening. Harry Stoneham was the piano man who played Harry Nasty, and we again Michael's wonderful creativity. We would have all of us walking into a grandfather clock and coming out the other side into a different land. And yes, thank you for remembering that. Lovely memories, darling.
Oh, absolutely. And there's so many as well. I mean, we could talk for weeks about the career that you've had so far. In recent years, people might remember you from Celebrity MasterChef or EastEnders. I saw you in a couple of tours, Cabaret with John Partridge and
Oh,
Cilla
yeah.
as well, of course, the life of somebody you knew so well, Cilla Black. But
Yes.
all this time, you've been writing this book about panto as well, haven't you? Tell us a bit about that.
I just feel that having worked in pantomime for so many years and admired so many other artists, but it is the fascination of the history of pantomime that I want to engage with, but also, we have to thank our producers and directors for braving all the challenges of the years of putting on shows. But when you look back at the ancient Greeks and the Romans, the Italian, the French, even Marceau with mime, to Shakespeare, my fascination is how did it grow into where it is now? We mentioned Vesta Tilly before, and again, I was because I was fascinated with her life. She was on stage at the age of 3 as well, but she also was starring at Drury Lane at the age of 13 as
Mm.
Principal Boy. How does that manifest itself into where we are now? That's my fascination. And I think I also want to, because I feel so blessed about having worked with so many wonderful artists, I want to pay tribute to them. So, and also again, mentioning Mike, he was a fabulous artist, and he's created some beautiful paintings and illustrations over the years. So I've got this combination of celebrating pantomime within my world of pantomime. So if that doesn't sound, I hope not too bombastic, or it's not about me, it's about my enjoyment of having been a part of it. That's the nub of what I'd like to get across.
Well, I think there should be lots of your stories of the people that you worked with, but I think you're right. The fascination with how we got to where we are today through, and particularly through Commedia dell'arte, I think more than anything else. And it's interesting how that influenced mime, clowning in general, which obviously had an impact on circus, also had an impact on things like Punch and Judy, for example, and of course pantomime. And a lot of people go and see pantomime and see it as a great family entertainment, but they have no idea of the history, do they?
No, and that doesn't matter. It matters to us because that widens our knowledge, and therefore that widens perhaps some of our performance, maybe. But for you and I, who really do care about it, you're absolutely right with Committed dell'arte. It's worldwide, which again, the fascination is why is it just truly British?
Yeah.
You go all over the British Isles and Ireland. It's something quintessential us. So why hasn't it really taken off? I know Paul Elliott started doing some of it in Canada at one time, didn't he? In
Yes.
Toronto. I think they loved it, but it hasn't sustained there. So why is it so special to us? Question, question.
Well, listen, do we have any idea when the book will be out?
I'm really almost there. If I can get out for the end of this year, that would be wonderful. And I'm struggling a bit, but I think I'm only struggling because I just want it to be right. But if not this year, it'll definitely be out for next year. And thank you for all that you put into the world of pantomime as well.
Listen, Anita, it's been absolutely fascinating. Maybe in the future we can have a catch up again on the series because there is so much more to discuss with you about pantomime in general and your amazing career. But in the meantime, thank you so much for talking to us.
Oh, thank you, darling, for touching my inner heart where pantomime remains. But for you, with doing so much with pantomime, embracing the pantomimes now, that's another thing that, sorry, I'm going on a bit, but I want to pick up the new talent because there are so many young people that are embracing it now, and that's going to evolve, and that's going to be wonderful for years to come. So on a short note, thank you for having me.
You are absolutely
I love
welcome.
talking.
It's
Wow.
my pleasure entirely. That's it for now, though. Don't forget to subscribe through your favourite podcast app, and make sure you join me, Martin Ballard, next time for episode 115, when I'll be at the recent UK Pantomime Association panel event in Oxford to join the discussion with top pantomime writers from across the UK and explore excellent practice in script writing and discuss the future of pantomime.
Thank you for listening to the latest edition of Just Imagine, the podcast series from Imagine Theatre. And you can find out more by going to www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.